Chicken stew. Almost everywhere in the world, across all regions in India, all corners of the globe, there is a recipe for chicken stew. But today I'm going to take you through a very simple, easy recipe for chicken stew. And this is a recipe that is very close to my heart because I discovered it in the Air Force mess. Very simple. You can put whatever you like in it, except of course there has to be chicken, and you can do it with mutton as well. Comes out equally delicious. And then there's some carrots, some beans, some cauliflower, don't tell Amit, and potatoes of course. And in terms of spices, all it has is a few bits of garam masala as we know it, which is cloves and cardamom and cinnamon. And it has some onion and it has a few slices of ginger. And of course one of the main things is the peppercorns which get put into it, which as a child I used to avoid and line them up by the side of my plate. And to thicken the whole thing so that it's a nice, hearty stew, as one likes to call it, there's a little bit of milk and a little bit of all-purpose flour. There's one thing I'm going to do slightly differently from what probably my mother used to do or the Air Force mess used to do, and that is I'm going to sear the chicken in a little bit of oil. I've been reading all these yummy recipes for Hungarian goulash or pork, that's what they call it, and so I'm going to sear this because I think it holds the juices in. I think the oil is hot enough because it's smoking. I'm going to cover this guy because he's spattering too much, so I don't want little burn marks all over my beautiful arms. I'm going to put the flame on low, don't want it to burn, and don't worry about these bits that are sticking here because it will all go into the gravy. I'm going to add a little more oil to this, not too much, this is not an oily dish. And I'm going to add the onions. Now the onions, you'll notice I've left some whole, because whole onions when they go squishy taste really yummy, and one onion I've sliced. Just give this a stir. So while these onions are browning on one side of the pot, I'm going to add the bay leaves and the garam masala, which I've sort of bashed a little bit so that they release more fragrance onto the other side. I'm going to add a pinch of salt to the onions because I want them to soften up. I'm not putting too much salt because I might add some chicken stock later on. And as you know, that also has salt, so don't want it too salty. So there goes my 3 slices of ginger and all the vegetables. including the beans. And I'm going to dunk in the chicken. So that all the veggies get a little bit of the chicken juice on them. And I'm going to cover it for a little while. Let it all stew in its own juices. And please note, it is cooking on slow fire. So while that is cooking, let me tell you why we're making chicken stew. Now, after Delhi, our trip, our holiday, took us to Jabalpur. Puri and aloo. Aloo cooked with just namak, haldi and lal mirch. Nothing else.
Which station?
Jhansi?
No,
Gwalior. Where we were meeting all our school classmates, and the host for that whole event was my very dear friend Colonel Apu Verma, and since he was army and I was a ex-Air Force brat, of course the conversation turned to food in the mess and how good it was and how bad it was. I kept saying good because I just loved the Air Force mess food. But Apu, of course, had to eat it almost every day of his life, so he probably wasn't in agreement with me. And then, you know, when you're there with your chuddy buddies and partying and having great fun, reliving your youth, so to speak. So I thought, you know, my childhood chicken stew would be one of the best things to have. Let me tell you more about what we did in Jabalpur. Jabalpur itself, of course, was a great place to discover, even though Apu kept saying it's just a small town. Amit, of course, found the most amazing mithai walas. They were making milk cake right there in front of him and he couldn't move. He was like stuck over there. And then there were these, every time we turned around to look for Amit, he was stuck in front of some bhajia guy's shop or a samosa guy, or I don't know, the street food over there is like crazy. And of course, I bought jewelry. There were these 1 gram gold stores and one just couldn't resist walking in and, you know, buying stuff, which is so economical, I can't tell you. This is of course just fun jewelry, and it's pretty, and you can't sort of resist buying jewelry, can you? Especially if you're a woman. And then from Jabalpur, we drove, I think it was just half a day's drive, to this amazing wildlife tiger reserve called Kanha. In Kanha, we of course went on these wildlife safaris, and what an amazing array of animals we saw. There was Sinha, there was foxes, there were birds of all kinds, maybe a few monkeys. I don't know, the monkeys were kind of hiding from us. And it was really breathtaking. The flora, the fauna, it was beyond description. And the first day, it was an evening safari. The guys who were driving us around, they were like, oh, there's a tiger here, oh, there's a tiger there, oh, there's a tiger here, there. And we just kept racing back and forth, and there was all this dust flying around, and the sun was setting, and there was no tiger. The next day, we went for a morning safari, and this was at 5 in the morning or so. The sun was just about rising, and the light was beautiful, and it was cold, and the air was fresh and dew laden, and the sun was sort of, you know, sparkling through the leaves and stuff like that. And it was all very peaceful and calm, and it sort of felt like we were intruding, but being humans, we were curious. We wanted to see them, the animals, and we wanted to see every bit of the wildlife that we could. And we were like, are we going to get to see that tiger? Will it happen? Is it in our fate, our destiny? Will they appear for us? And a lot of us were like, oh well, anyway, it was good fun. We met our friends, we had a good time, and doesn't matter if the tiger doesn't show. And then he did. The tiger walked about in the bushes, showing off his gait, and then he jumped across the road. The lady tigresses sort of, did a fashion walk, a ramp walk for the guys while they were being shot with cameras, and it was really good fun. I mean, that sort of really capped the whole holiday, so to speak. So this has been stewing for a while, about 10 minutes, while I was telling you all the Kanha stories. And the veggies are semi-cooked, the chicken is semi-cooked, and what I'm going to do now is add just a little bit of water to sort of help it along the way. The fragrance is amazing, that sabut garam masala, the whole spices, and the chicken and the onions and the carrots. Carrots are really amazing when it comes to adding fragrance to food. About a cup of water. And stir, and then let it stew. So this has been bubbling away for about 7-8 minutes. Can you see these onions? They are so delicious. They sort of, you put the whole onion in your mouth and it's yummy. So everything is cooked, and now before I add the milk with the maida, the flour, I'm going to add a few peppercorns. So about a cup of milk. I'm not going to pour the whole thing in, I'm going to save some for the flour. I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of all-purpose flour to the milk. And then I'm going to strain it through because I don't want lumps of flour in my stew. Well, I think I'm going to add a little more water to this. Let me just check for salt. It does need salt, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my chicken stock. So 3 generous teaspoons. Stir well so that you get the stock evenly distributed. You can take out the bay leaves now if you like. They have sort of done their work. And you don't really want bay leaves being served onto people's platters. Nice bubbles, thick stew, and it's done. Let's go eat. I am really looking forward forward to this. So without further ado, I shall serve myself. Get some veggies in. You know, in the Air Force mess, they have something called a dining in night, and that is only for the officers, and it's a very formal affair. It's a sit-down dinner, and my father, I think they used to do it once a month or something during my dad's time. I don't know how often they do it now, whether they still do it. By the way, my dad was in the Indian Air Force, and he was an Air Commodore flyer. And he used to really hate these dining in nights because he would always come home hungry. And the reason for that was that while you were eating with one of those umpteen knives and forks that were laid out next to your plate, the station commander or the person, whoever was leading the dinner, would put his knife and fork down. And the minute he put it down, everybody else had to put it down. Never mind if you hadn't even had a bite. So Dad would come home at 11 o'clock at night and tell my mom, Minto, I'm so hungry, give me something to eat. So that was dining in night, and luckily I don't have to worry about that. I shall carry on serving myself. What goes better with stew than some nice bread, especially if it's a sourdough bread. So, bon appetit. Ready to eat? I am. Oh. First mouthful has to be the onion with the chicken. I really can't tell you how delicious that is. And you know, when you bite into the pepper in the middle of the chicken and the gravy and the vegetables, it is absolutely amazing food. Very healthy, very wholesome, and very easy to make, and your family is going to love you when you give them this. So go ahead, like, subscribe, comment while I eat.
Alright, any last message? Because this will pick up part of your reunion film. Just any last message, anybody?
Okay, guys, next
We are the best.
Everybody do a ha ha ha.
We are the best.
Senior citizens.
We are the best. Sexy seniors.
Alright. Who's the biggest bitch amongst the three of you?
I am. You're supposed to say yes, me.
The Kanchana wasn't keen on it. She was like, I'm happy with these two.
That means he's the biggest bitch. What the most happiness?
Kanchana is very quiet thing. Yeah. I endorse this.